You're listening to the Scaling Wellness Podcast, the podcast dedicated to sharing the what, why, and how of scaling your wellness practice, as well as sharing inspiring stories of how others did it themselves. I'm your host, DJ Turner, author, agency owner, houseplant lover, and your go-to guy for scaling your wellness practice. If you're looking for tips on how to grow your team, book more clients, and get out of the day-to-day in your practice, you've come to the right place. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the episode. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Scaling Wellness Podcast. In today's episode, I'm really excited to share an awesome story of scaling with our first interview of the new year. So today I'm going to be sitting down with Emily. Emily Woodside is a proud co-owner of Purity Day Spa, a full-service day spa and med spa located in Oklahoma City that was founded by her and her husband. Now, they have a very interesting story. After traveling and visiting local spas around the world, she and her husband decided that they wanted to bring the ideas and experience that they had made into a space of their very own. As they'd settled down to Oklahoma City, they realized, there isn't a place that really scratches that itch from everything they got to see and experience. And while neither of them are actually massage therapists, estheticians, or any of the traditional roles that you might expect to see of a spa owner practitioner, but in just the span of 3 years and through the COVID-19 pandemic, they've grown their business from nothing more than an idea to a team with over 12 practitioners on staff. This is one of the most fascinating and interesting stories of 0 to 100 that I've ever come across, and I'm so glad that I was able to reach out to her and have her episode and have her story here on the podcast. So in this episode, we're going to talk with Emily about how she has managed her business and grown this team in the middle of COVID shutdowns. If I remember correctly, they opened their doors just before the pandemic actually hit. We're going to get into what is EOS and how it has changed their business process and management. And if you've heard me mention the book Traction on this podcast, EOS is the system that Traction recommends. And this is just another point for why you need to pick up this book and what they do different with growth and how she approaches the team to be able to manage everyone and handle a large team well. So this is a fantastic conversation, a really fun one that I think you're going to enjoy. Without any further ado, let's get into my episode with Emily. So Emily, thanks for joining me here today. One of the first things I want to do is just get some context for the conversation that we're going to have. So can you just describe the spa as it is today, the team, the space, the services, and really just what Purity Day Spa is all about?
Yeah, so we are a full service spa. What I tell our clients is the only treatments we really don't offer would be like hair and nails, but anything else under the spa umbrella, we pretty much have. But we have 15 team members and we have 6 treatment rooms. 2 of them are couples rooms. And we really focus on the client experience and then our quality of products, which is by our name Purity, which is purity of product.
And so one of the things that I want to ask about as well, about you, we're going to get more into it during this conversation. I understand you and your partner in this business together. You've got, my assistant has a note, it just has 3 beautiful children. I know that family is something that's really big for you, but as well as spending the time outdoors, I saw that on your site. Just what does it mean for you? Like, what place does outdoors hold in your life?
Mm-hmm. So it started, I've kind of been outdoors most of my life, just hiking, going to the mountains, going to the beach when we would travel, or just playing outside when I was a kid. But as I became older, I realized that it's really connecting with nature, and that's what we're meant to do. People say, oh, make sure your vitamin D levels are good, or make sure that you're really grounding in the grass or whatever. But it's even bigger than that. Reconnecting to our nature, which is what our ancestors do. And so it just feels like another home for me to be outside, whether it is in the mountains or on the beach or even in my backyard.
Now, I understand that you've got a background that is different than a pretty large chunk of the guests on the show. I mean, your education, learning going into business as well as your work experience in the energy, oil, and gas sector. What is it, especially after a pretty, I would say maybe not the longest career, but a pretty long and true career in that industry? What brought you into wellness to begin with?
So my husband and I traveled a lot before we had kids. And whenever we would try a new city or town, we would try to find like a cute boutique spa that was part of the local community. And I remember thinking back then, I wish we had this in Oklahoma City we could go to spas like this in Oklahoma City. But it also goes back to me being outdoors, like love being outdoors, the wellness that creates. I feel like in every aspect of life, there is a channel or multiple channels where you can capture that wellness. And so, since we do have clean and active lifestyles, I really found that the channel of wellness that I wanted to explore was the spa industry.
And so, how did purity come into your life?
So, my husband and I had both been at Devon. He started a year after me, but I had been there 8 years and we had our first kid at that point. And we were just like, you know what? Being gone from 6 a.m. to 5 and really not seeing our son until the evening, I couldn't do it. And so I had talked to my husband about it and I took a huge leap of faith. And I knew I was excited about it too, because we had put our son down and I would stay up for hours writing my business plan. And I'm like a 9 p.m. lights out type person, but I didn't feel tired because I was invigorated, just kind of going on that journey. And looking back, that is like the craziest leap of faith, but I just felt like it was what I was supposed to do.
And so, of all of the things, how did you decide a spa compared to? I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities for wellness.
Yeah. And that goes back to when we were traveling, and I was like, oh, I wish we had something like this in Oklahoma City. I felt like there was something missing in the market. A lot of the like similar wellness markets were saturated with certain business types. And so I did feel like there was a market need in Oklahoma City at the time.
So the business looks really impressive. You being owner for 3 years. What did the first year of business look like?
It was really wild. We were a true startup, so zero clients. I am not a massage therapist or an esthetician, so I had to hire a massage therapist and esthetician. So with prior to day one, like no clients, brand new massage therapists and estheticians, not necessarily to industry, but to the spa. And we had opened October 2019. And then 4 to 5 months later, we got shut down for COVID. We were closed for 6 weeks. And then even after we reopened, I'm sure you've heard people experience this. People were still nervous to come in to spas because it's close contact. And so the first year was really crazy. And even after the first year, like November to February, we'd get a lot of cancellations for COVID positive clients. So just really trying to navigate through that and really wondering, like, are we going to survive through this? And I know so many businesses felt that way. So I wouldn't say it was easy, but we got through it.
And so in that first year as well, you are not a practitioner yourself, going and having to find the people. How big was your team sort of on day one? And just looking at it's quite a large team now.
Yeah. So day one, there were 7 of us, and now there are 15. But at the time, I could only, since we were a startup and we didn't have, a ton of working capital. I know this is a little off topic, but it kind of triggered something. Afford our staff to be independent contractors. And so since then, we've been able to shift almost everybody to W-2, any that want to be W-2 employees. And so that's been a huge change for us too. We can talk about that later in a different question if that helps.
Yeah, I think that's really good. One of my goals of the podcast is to be able to have conversations about these topics in business, especially in wellness and massage, that a lot of people they're having sort of behind closed doors or things that's really important, but there's no good resource to just go find out what other people are doing. So, the question I have is about just Okay, can you describe the structure of the team as it is now? So
Mhm.
the management versus admin versus practitioners, and then I want to dive into that independent contractor versus W-2 situation.
So we have for our hierarchy, it's me as the owner, and then I have three leads that report directly to me. So the four of us are a leadership team. So we have a lead esthetician, lead front desk, lead massage therapist, and then they have their team that report directly to them. That's been a huge shift for us in almost a year and a half, which has been really great. But we operate on EOS. I don't know if you've heard of EOS, but that has also been a game changer for us. You were talking about processes for businesses, documenting processes, having systems in place. That's been huge for us. And it's also been super beneficial for our employees because they know exactly what the process is. If they're grading a client, taking them upstairs, what if you need time requests off? So the way we're structured now is way more optimal for the size of our business because it's not everybody coming to me and I can trust my leaders to take managing everybody off of my plate. I love managing people, but it was too much whenever we got to this size. And then EOS has also helped with our structure as well to make it crystal clear who reports to who, what the processes are, etc.
And so, can you talk about EOS? I know for myself, so if anyone's listening, they're hearing EOS and they're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the show before, but the book I end up recommending to most of actually the guests we have on the show, most people listening, if you're really trying to take your business somewhere, like you're not just in the figuring it out, getting clients phase, but when you're really trying to, you're stable and moving forward. There's a great starting book, a book called Traction by, I think it's Gino Wickman. And there's an entire suite of these things. So yeah, can you just talk about like EOS, what it is and how you've kind of implemented it with your business?
So I've known about EOS for years because my parents' business in Dallas runs on EOS. But then I kept hearing it from like surrounding businesses or just randomly. And it was like constantly in my ear. And so finally I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to a couple consultants to see pricing, what that looks like for my industry, the size of my business. So I interviewed a few consultants. We did kind of like a consult with my leadership team, and everybody was just like, this would be great. And I know firsthand from my parents' company the great thing that it's done for them. But what EOS is, it is an operating system and not like a software system. How you structure your business, there's a lot to it, but they really, really focus on processes, not like microprocessing, but what your core processes are and documenting them. And then making sure that everything is really clearly communicated to the rest of the organization. And it creates stability in your business as well. And so we have quarterly meetings and it helps us plan for the next quarter. So you have things called rocks, which would be like that quarter's deadlines. And so every leader and every employee has their rocks, and it just keeps you moving forward at the pace that you want to. And you decide that as a leadership team. It is not the owner is making all the decisions and that's it. It is very team based, and that's very important in EOS.
And one of the things I wanted to ask about as well, and thank you for taking the time to explain that, just as an aside, it's something where in this industry, I think it's really great that you come in kind of as a transplant in the sense of a lot of people grow up first as practitioners, and then when they figure out the business things, they're pretty, I'd say, lost, to be honest. I mean, it's part of the reason my business exists and I'm able to have clients is they're really focused on being good massage therapists or good estheticians, good providers, and there is this missing space of being good at the business. So you've got leadership now, you've got a large team, 15 people. What's your approach to management?
You have got to trust your people. I'm going to back up a little bit. Whenever we first opened, we didn't have a leadership team. And so I was full-time front desk. So also a learning opportunity for me because I had never been in the industry. So I was there soaking up as much knowledge as I could. And then whenever we got to a certain size and we got a leadership team in place, that was whenever we did EOS. And like I said, it has changed our business, but everything runs on EOS, and there's no question about how we manage our team because we have the documentation in place. And I manage my team with like trust, and we make the big decisions together. And then same thing, they trust their direct reports and they run on EOS as well. That part is pretty simple. Whether it's EOS or any other type of organized structure, it makes it a lot easier to manage your team.
We'll be back with this episode in just a moment. But first, let me ask you a question. Does it ever feel like you're stuck on some sort of business treadmill? Despite all the hard work you put in, it feels like you aren't actually going anywhere. And at first, growing your practice and filling it with clients was everything you ever dreamed of. But now, the day-to-day of your business is starting to almost feel like a never-ending nightmare. You know you love your clients, you maybe even built a team, and you can't imagine giving any of it up, yet at the same time, you feel like you just can't seem to escape. If that sounds like you, I want to offer you an alternative. I like to call it Wellness Practice Freedom. It's a place where your practice gives you more than just money. When you get to this point, you're no longer the main engine in the vehicle, and instead, you finally get to act like the driver. And most importantly, you'll be in a place where you can work as little or as much as you'd like because you know that your practice is built in a way that it can thrive without you. Sound interesting? Then I want to invite you to take the journey to achieving wellness practice freedom. During this call, we'll dive into exactly what freedom looks like for you, the changes that you need to take, and what's going to allow you to step back from your business without worrying about your income or everything falling apart. Ready to get started? Then head over to my calendar at www.scalingwellness.com/chat. Again, that's www.scalingwellness.com/chat. Now, let's get back to the episode. For anyone listening, really, one of the best starting points is the book Traction. There's two popular business books called Traction. Grab the one that is orange and black, Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. I think it's Gino Wickman. Grab that book. And so you mentioned earlier about in the beginning, you can only afford to have independent contractors before switching to employees. This is a pretty common thing that we see, especially in small teams, kind of like a team of 5, 6, 7. The control and management becomes very different. It makes a lot of sense, especially at that size. I just think transition points are so interesting and one of the places where people can learn the most. Just what was that transition like for you and for your team? Did they revolt and you have to find new people? Was it smooth? Just what was the process like?
So I gave everybody a choice if they wanted to transition over to W-2 employees. I would say it was a fairly smooth transition. It was hard to get that like mental shift, like, okay, I'm now part of a spa family. I've got to do stuff like do like weekly cleaning or whatever. And we don't really in our space have like our service providers do a ton outside opening and closing their rooms, but there were some additional responsibilities as a W-2 employee. So there was like a little bit of interesting transition with that, but overall it was an easy transition. That was like the only mild pain point during the whole process.
Hmm. And so as the business has grown quite fast in a short amount of time, I'm curious just about your relationship to your business. How has your role as the owner changed, and other things you've had to start doing more of or things you've had to let go of?
Yeah. So I mentioned I worked full-time front desk for a while. And then as we did start growing, I felt that burnout coming on. I know that so many people, you can feel it coming on. And if you don't act fast, it can come on pretty intensely. But it took also my leadership team to shift me out of that mentality of like really being in the weeds because it was hindering our growth for a short time. And so I just had to let go of being in the weeds and really focus on the things that would grow the business.
And in that same vein, growth, How have you structured growth? I like to think about I got this from, I think, storytelling. There's two sort of extremes. One side is the gardeners and they're planting seeds. They don't really know what's going to happen, but letting things come and grow organically. And the other side are they're the architects. They sit down and say, okay, this is what I want. And then they go and reverse engineer it. How has growth been for you? And do you sway more towards one side than the other?
So I mentioned that all of our major decisions are made as a leadership team. We've been really back and forth. I don't have like a solid answer because both have worked for us during a certain time in the business. Most recently, I would say this year, we've been focusing on different advertising techniques that have really helped our growth. I think it's also important to partner with local businesses. It kind of helps you grow in the community. So that's what we've been doing for growth. We've had periods of times where we've had like intense growth and then more steady growth. I would say right now we're in a steady growth period, and that's because our leadership team has chosen that for this time so that we can get some internal things like remaining processes documented.
Mhm. Now, I'm curious about just your relationship with money. I just think at a team of this size, if we do some quick napkin math, we're well into multiple six figures, especially in a space where a lot of people who are starting businesses, a lot of practitioners, they're maybe a tenth of the size. You've got a background, family in business, you came from another industry. Just what's your relationship like with money?
Probably the closest example would be the Dave Ramsey philosophy. I'm not as extreme as he is, or not as he is, but his philosophy is. But I try to be pretty frugal and keep debt very low, mainly for my own personal views and my mental state. So that's kind of how I am. I'm more on the frugal side. I'm obviously not risk adverse because I did a startup right before a pandemic, but I would say that type of relationship with money.
And I just want to ask, so having a family of business owners as
Mhm.
well, did that give you the confidence to go in and have a startup? I mean, you were filling a need that you felt was going to be there. That choice between let's make something new versus let's go buy something and change it completely.
Yeah, my parents were completely against me opening my own business. And it's because they know the struggles of being a business owner. It is hard a lot of the times. So I think that me being a corporation for 8 years was great. My parents did not want me to do it because of the struggles, but I did see most of like my life, the struggles that they went through. And so I would say seeing them in their journey also made me want to go on that journey. And it also was eye opening to me getting firsthand experience of kind of the struggles that they went through and why they were telling me, don't open your own business, don't do it. It made perfect sense, like as parents giving advice to their daughter. So I think them having their business is one reason that I stayed in a corporate world for 8 years, but it's also the reason that I started my own business, if that makes sense.
And there's no business or business owner that I know of that hasn't had or made some sort of mistake or at least had a lesson or two that was not very fun to learn in the process. When you think
Yeah.
about any mistakes or hard lessons, are there any that stand out to you as having been something you really learned a lot from?
Get a great leadership team. You cannot do it by yourself. You probably can for a certain amount of time, but whenever you start getting that burnout feeling, you have to be able to delegate and form a great leadership team.
And I want to look at that as well. So, at what point did you start to build your leadership team? And I'm curious about just for other people when they're thinking, is it based off of how big the team is or how your burnout was feeling or like what sort of metrics and things you were looking at to say, okay, now's the time to put some leadership together.
Right. So our EOS leadership team, so the EOS like philosophy leadership team was built almost a year ago. And so that was a big turning point for us.
And what do you think has made you succeed where others has failed, especially still being a young startup right when the pandemic hit? And I think there are a lot of people who, you've doubled the team. A lot of people aren't able to do that. What do you think has caused it to work for you?
I'm really not sure. The main things I can really think of is I really trust and appreciate my employees. I came from a corporate environment that really took care of their employees. Like I loved the company I used to work for. My husband's still there. And so I just really tried to translate some of that over to my business because you don't really see that so much with small businesses in our industry. And then I also think that having a business background and working in a corporate environment helped with it as well. So those are the two main things that I could think of.
And so you've made it this far in a really short amount of time. What's next for you?
We are going through a brand revamp right now, and it's going to be released next month. I'm really excited about that. And then we have some really exciting new services coming. I can't talk about it yet, but they're coming. And then I do eventually want to open a second location as well.
And so thank you for having this conversation. I've got a few more quick questions. I don't need to have quick answers. One of the first ones, just being a business owner is hard. It just is, no matter how long you've been doing it, what size of the business is. When you find yourself feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, what do you do and how do you find some sort of relief?
I have to physically step away from my desk and clear my head, whether that's through meditation or just intentional quiet time.
And what was your last oh shit moment and what'd you do about it?
So I've had a few oh shit moments since we've opened. It's really been crazy. A lot of the big ones, I can't talk about it, but what I can say that I've learned through the oh shit moments are that do not act or react in that moment because that's when it's the most emotional. Emotions are high. And so just kind of wait and be still until you know the right thing to do.
And in your business journey, is there any book, course, person, resource, just anything, something or someone that stands out as being really helpful or a favorite of yours?
So it's interesting. One book that I would recommend is Traction. And then Leadership by Dave Ramsey. And then I was also just thinking Four Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive, which has a really similar concept to EOS. Those have been really beneficial for me. And then people that have been great during the transition, just like who I go to through this business journey would be my husband, and then my parents, my in-laws, and then our consultant.
And so we've covered a lot. Do you have any final words of advice, especially someone who is, I would say that you're achieving scale in this industry, someone who really wants to grow something large? Any final words of advice for them?
I would always say to do your research. In school, if you're a practitioner, they have you do a business plan, and it's not always super extensive, but really make sure that you do a thorough business plan to understand the resources that you're about to give. And so the risk of it, your time, because the first at least 2 years are extremely time intensive. And then your money or loans, which goes along with the risk. But it's a wild ride, but it's been worth it for me. And I've enjoyed most of it. Just the only things have been the typical owner, like small business owner, like freakouts. But other than that, it's been great.
So where's the best place to go if someone wants to learn more about you, your business, or get connected with you?
So our website is puritydayspaokc.com. And then to contact me, you just email me, which is Emily with a Y at puritydayspaokc.com.
So thank you again so much. And thanks everyone watching, listening, however it is you're consuming this. That's all for this interview. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. The Scaling Wellness Podcast is hosted and produced by yours truly, DJ Turner. Administration, guest research, editing, and associate production by Helen C. For highlights and updates, follow us on Instagram at Scaling Wellness. And for more information on how to scale your practice up and get out of the day-to-day, head to www.scalingwellness.com.